Hello, good morning. Good morning, Heath, or whatever it happens to be in your particular time zone. Testing 1, 2. Tell me you can hear me. 1, 2. It looks like you can't hear me. Hi, how we doing? So yes, 2 weeks in a row he's streaming. I wanted to get back on the right second and last Friday of the month cadence. So 2 weeks in a row. Exciting. Excellent. Thank you, Heath. It's Friday. Happy Friday. Midnight. Good heavens. Thank you for staying up, I guess, to watch this stream. Nice to know. We are quite international, aren't we? Got my coffee. For me, it's 11 a.m., so I'm 2 coffees down so far. I slept okay last night, so, I think we're good today. How we doing? We're gonna chat for a minute to give folks a chance to turn up, if they are gonna turn up. I'm wearing a shirt. I haven't seen this shirt on stream yet. I have a whole bunch of Hawaiian shirts that I love, but we're always a little too snug, a little too tight. I couldn't quite get into them. And, since December, I've been on a pretty major diet, and I am now down to the point where all of those shirts I couldn't wear before, now I can wear them, so this is one of the shirt. It's a great pattern. Gonzo would wear this shirt for sure. I think Gonzo has a very similar, the chili pepper shirt that he's famous for. Yeah, building puppets. That's what we're gonna do. There's the newest one. Here's the newest custom Greebly. I haven't asked permission from the client to say who they are yet, so they may in fact turn up in the stream. Yeah, so the thing is, I got diagnosed with diabetes, so it's not really an option for me. It turns out that if you don't do this, you will go blind, get your foot amputated, and then die. Turns out that's a really great motivator. So yeah, no, I'm on a calorie and carb restricted diet. Not extreme, but Twitch chat isn't loading, so I popped over here. Good heavens. First, one thing or another is with Twitch. It's always Twitch that's the problem. Is the video going though? I checked it before I turned everything on. Oh, thank you. I have 0 copyright strikes against me. Thank you for telling me that. Okay, it looks okay from here. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Whatever. Hopefully, if it's just a chat thing, then, maybe that's an actual thing that Twitch is experiencing rather than my stream. I don't know. Everything else is working. Yeah, okay. Well, the nice thing about the Restream relay chat is that everybody can see everybody else. So, hopefully it'll all work out. I don't know. As long as the stream's going, that's all that matters. It's not all that matters. I want to be able to chat with y'all. Indies Keep, hello. You're on Twitch. I can see that you're on Twitch. Let me know if Twitch is being weird again. I figured out last time the problem was we were trying to send too much video. The bitrate was too high, and we fixed that. Let me look at the bitrate now. Bitrate's really low. I don't know what's going on there. Okay. I don't know. I think that's falls under not my jurisdiction. Delay is odd. Well, that's probably from Restream then. There's an extra delay with Restream, unfortunately. So it's the drawback from being able to do this. But there's nothing I can really do about that. I've been thinking about at some point upgrading to vMix as my streaming software of choice. It'd be expensive to hello Zap, how you doing? That would be expensive to do for what I need. My mic is going a bit hot. Let me just turn that down a little bit. So I'm hesitant, but we'll see. But what I can do from vMix is I can stream to multiple platforms directly. I wouldn't have to go through Restream, so which would make chat a challenge, I think. But I don't know. Maybe vMix has something that will handle that. I have no idea. So today, what are we doing? We are going, oh wait, I forgot. We have an agenda. Here we go. Did that work? Yes, it worked. Ooh, so today, we're doing the intro right now. Then we're going to get onto the hand/arm pattern. It's one and the same for the way I usually do it. And then probably move on to actually building the pattern that we make. Then free time, free play at the end. So, is this correct? No, back to here. There we go. Puppet Maker's got hot. Too hot for Twitch. That's us. Here's the thing. You know what? We're gonna get right to it because I don't want to waste time. Hey, we're using this camera again. What do you know? So here's where we're at from the last stream. I haven't done anything. I had hoped to refine this body pattern a little bit. I just didn't get the time to do it. So this is exactly what we made last week with our head and everything. And it's okay, but I want to work on this. I want this to be better. It's just a little too boxy. And the way I'm going to deal with that, I don't really want to make these darts longer, which is one of the ways to deal with this. See this squareness here? I don't like that. I want to make that a little bit more rounded. One way to deal with it is to just make these darts longer, keep the width the same, but make them longer. And that would start the curve earlier. But I don't really want to do that. I want it like a soda can, right? I want it like the cylinder and then a little bevel at the end. So the way to do this is to just add more darts. And of course, if we add more darts, that means we have to make the darts that exist thinner so the overall diameter is the same. I had hoped to do that before today, but I never got the time. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to stream next week, although streaming weekly is on the table. I will say that. These are going quite well, so we may increase the frequency. Not next week, but what I will do is if I don't get a chance to do an iteration of this pattern by next Friday, I'm going to shoot some video. And I think this may be a regular thing. I want to keep these videos kind of moving, or these streams moving, and not get bogged down in iterating on the patterns. But I still do want to refine these and iterate on these. So I'm going to shoot like interstitial videos. But I'm not going to stream, but I will shoot them just with this whole rig and everything. And then I'll put them up in the playlist for the live streams. So you can follow along with them and see what I've done with the patterns that we did on stream. So I think that's probably a decent way of doing it. It's more content, and content is king after all. So I think if I don't get a chance to do that before next Friday, that's what I will do on next Friday. I'll shoot a video of refining this body pattern. And like I said, all I'm going to do is just add 4 more darts. And so this will just be more rounded. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do with that. The rest is fine. And then we'll do like the skin as well. So today, let's go to the top view. Today we are, it's a little blown out. I guess it's fine. Too late now. I thought again, try and check everything, and there's always something you miss. I mean, at least you can see it, right? We're going to do a hand. We're going to start with a hand, and then that's just going to extend into the arm. There's a few different ways to do hand/arm patterns. Some of them are like the hand and the arm are separate. I usually do it as a single piece. It's just quicker and easier and simpler, and I always try and go for simple, particularly for general builds for the shop. It's usually a time thing. It is better if you do the hand and the arm separately, and you can kind of pay attention and give each piece a little bit more attention individually. But it's really not necessary. This is a very standard way. This is the method that like Project Puppet Patterns use, for example. And it works just fine. Now, the interesting thing here is I haven't actually, much like the body pattern that we did last week, I haven't actually done this exact process before. I usually do, when I'm doing a new hand pattern, I do it with the vector program on the computer, so I can get nice, perfect curves and clean lines and everything. There's no reason why you can't hand draw it. I just do that, and then I print it out on cardstock, and it's nice and easy, and I can even make notations on it and everything. But this should be fine. This should work. It's just a matter of getting it all nice and even and clean and everything. So that's what we're going to use the circle template for. We're going to base everything around circles and lines and connecting circles and lines. That should be it. So since we're doing a pretty generic, simple anything character, we'll do 3 fingers and a thumb. That is the standard for puppets and cartoon characters. You may ask why, if you're watching this, you probably know why, but the 3 fingers and a thumb thing rather than 4 fingers and a thumb became a standard, I think in the 20s, early Disney and Max Fleischer and then all that, those designs, that became the thing because just drawing 4 fingers is a lot, and the fewer fingers, the better. Fingers are a pain, both in animation and in puppet building. I don't know a single puppet builder who's like, oh boy, I get to make fingers. They're always fiddly and just annoying. That's among the reasons. I'm watching and I have no idea why. Well, one day it will happen. A little neuron will fizzle in your brain and you'll just go, I said I gotta build puppets now. So one of the reasons that everybody knows that, everybody, probably if you're watching this, you've seen my builds wherein I always do my signature 2 fingers and a thumb. There's a couple of reasons for that. I do just like how they look. I've been doing that as a kind of, whenever I design a monster, that's always the structure of their hand or arm or, foot or whatever. I just like it. There's something that's still credible, it's still believable, and yet there's something slightly alien about it, right? It's the Vulcan sign. So it's just slightly other from our hands. And the other reason that I do it, of course, the fringe benefit is it's just 1 less finger I have to make. It's just nice that way. That's just a fringe benefit. But I know for every stand, custom Greebly here, did 3 fingers and a thumb because that was requested. Although they did go for the dual toes, so that was nice. The client said keep it in the family, because that's all the Greeblies have the 2 finger thing. So we are going to do 3 fingers and a thumb for this because we're doing a very generic design. So that's that. So the trick, as far as I can tell, the trick with this is going to be making them all even, right? So as a kind of design standard, the fingers are usually about the same length. In a human hand, your fingers are not the same length. They kind of are in a cartoon style hand. So that's kind of easy because it means we can just make circles that are the right diameter and then connect them, right? Sometimes, and don't feel restrained by just a standard curve. You can make anything. I've got the newts, for example, have these little pads on the end of their fingers that are like suction cups because that's how salamanders look. You can do thin, skinny, going to a point. You can do anything. This is just sort of a good starting point. So that's what we're going to do. So at first, I think we're going to live stream pattern as we build it. We're going to decide how big we want the palm first. So that's where this circle template thing, get yourself these, they come in all kinds of sizes. They're really, really handy for doing this kind of patterning. Coffee. We're only 15 minutes in. That's good. We're keeping it moving. So I'm going to grab a pencil. So in terms of the size, now our little critter that we're working on here is on the small size, so we don't want to do this too big. Although one of the kind of main cartoon aesthetics is that the hands are always a bit bigger than chicory coffee. Yes, this is Cafe Du Monde, the tin that Kermit's sitting on. I guess you can't see it right now. Yeah, it's Cafe Du Monde chicory coffee. Well, it's chicory and coffee. It's chicory in coffee. It's not just chicory. It's all I drink now. I'm so used to it that it's like occasionally I'll make like an espresso or something and it tastes a little odd to me because there's no chicory. I've gone that far down the hole. So yes, size. Larger hands tend to be the thing in a cartoony design, and there's a couple of reasons for it. And one is that your hands are very expressive, and so you want to make sure that those are really clearly visible. So cartoon style design, this camera being blown out is really bugging me. That's too bright. Okay, we're gonna try and fix it. Hang on. Here we go. This is why we check these things before we start the stream, Kevin. Give me a sec. The only way I can do this is try and connect to the camera with a really dodgy app. Hopefully this works and doesn't completely destroy the stream. Let's go. Come on, you can do it. I guess I gotta turn the ISO down. If I do it manually, the problem is it's even kind of tilted a little bit. The mount that this camera's on is a bit weak, and if I touch that thing, it's gonna go flying, or not flying, but it's gonna like get all misaligned and everything. So I just gotta like leave it, don't touch it. I gotta get a stronger mount for it. But time, what is time? Okay, here we go. Looks like we're gonna be able to do this. I am connected. Let's do this. It's a little. That seems all right. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, good. Did I get my pencil? I got my pencil. Okay, here we go. That's much nicer to look at now. It's not flowing. So we're going to design the hand. Yeah, I know, and that was just turning the ISO down a notch. We're going to start with the palm. So I think. Get this the right way around. I don't know. We're just going to eyeball this. We want to go a little bit smaller than normal. And I mean, like I can. Oh, you know what? The only hand pattern I have cut out is a Project Puppet pattern. I don't want to show that on stream, so we won't be doing that. Oh, is it? Hang on. Maybe I have. No, nothing. Nothing that wouldn't be, possibly violating user agreements, though. So we're just gonna go this freehand, as it were. See, freehand because it's a hand. So this 2-inch, that might be a little bit too big. Let's go a little bit smaller, and we can always increase it. And the other thing you have to remember is whenever you're starting from a pattern, when you put fleece over this, it's going to increase the size by like 1/4 of an inch. Overall, so it's going to bulk up. So we'll start with this. We're going to go 1 3/4 inch for the palm, which looks a little small, but again, for this puppet, I think it's going to be just fine. So we'll just do this. Actually, no, we're going to do it. I don't want to waste cardstock. Try it here. And the nice thing about circle templates is they give you little crosshairs. So we're going to make sure we mark those so we can always find center. Always important. And for the fingers, you can do any design you want. I generally do it just kind of a little bit stumpy, a little bit short and stubby. That's a terrible center line, Kevin. Why did I do that? I'm streaming and I'm not paying attention, you see. Center line should be in the center. It's these little tips that make the difference, you see? There we go. And all right, so we got our little gun sight here. You see that? Yeah, you can see that. Okay, so what we want is 3 fingers and a thumb. So the nice thing is we've got our center line here. We can put the middle finger along this middle axis right here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to about the length, and we're not even gonna measure this. We're just gonna eyeball this about where we want the finger to end, and I'm gonna find a circle that looks about right. I'm just gonna make sure we have a nice straight line here. Important. Again, this is just, I'm just making this up as we go. So, you know, there's no hard and fast rule with this. This is just me noodling around. So I'm going to go to where the end of the finger should be. I'm going to find a circle that looks about the right diameter, just from eyeballing it. And we're going to put a circle there, and put the crosshairs. Because the nice thing about having these crosshairs is, since we know where the center is, and we could always then connect, like start from the crosshair, from the edge, and we're going to get a nice curve. So generally fingers, we can do this like straight down, but we want to put curves between them. We want to maybe taper them a little bit so they get a little bit wider at the base. So we're just going to look at like what's the diameter of that circle. So that's 9/16. So we're going to go a little bit larger. We're going to go 5/8. And we're going to put another circle. I'm going to line up those crosshairs. I'm going to put another circle at the bottom, just like that, right? And so now we can just join the edges and congratulations, you have made a finger. Now, this is a bit of a rude gesture, admittedly, but we are going to also do curves in between the fingers, so they you know, there's a nice little dip between them, but we're going to stick with this for now. So all we really want to do now is decide where we want the other fingers to end, and this is just like, you're just kind of doing like a neutral position. So we'll go here. Let's make sure we get the right one. That one, 9/16. And we'll go here, marking the crosshairs, and say here. Again, there's no you know, rule about this. It's just what you feel. I mean, for all I know, there are rules, and a better designer than me could probably tell you what they are. That's all. And I'm going to take these center lines. I'm going to give us just a kind of vector to follow. Now, you know, I could have been a little more careful and carefully measured out, you know, so we get equidistant from here. It really depends on how far you want to go. This will end up being just fine. When you stuff them, they tend to get bigger through. If you're using stretchy fabric, yeah, it will definitely end up looking bigger than what your pattern is. Always bear that in mind. So now we're going to do the bases of the fingers. 5/8 for that. There. This is just to kind of give us a guide of where we're going to put the sides. It's all about just lining up those crosshairs. So those might be a little close together. We'll sort that out in a minute. I think we'll be fine. Again, this isn't a science. This is just kind of feeling it. So, we know we want to just do a little curve in between these. Again, I'm just going to freehand that. It's fine. All right. You fill your hands with foam or fiber fill. For these, we're going to do foam, and we're going to do wire armature so the fingers can be posed. I usually fill my arms with fiber fill. So I do a hand insert with 2 pieces of foam that are sandwiched with a hand plate and then wire armature. Yes, and the arm itself is stuffed with fiberfill. We'll get there. We're gonna do the whole thing, including the wire armature. So thumb. We need a thumb. Everyone needs a thumb. So I'm also just gonna eyeball where we're gonna come. We'll designate this as the pinky, but we're just gonna come down a little bit. Yeah. Zep keeps trying to force us to use hazardous materials. And I'm telling you, there's nothing more hazardous than barge. You know, again, I'm just gonna feel it. Where would the thumb go? Well, the thumb probably about here. Remember, thumbs are a bit stumpy. So we'll go there. And then we'll put our base circle, lining up the crosshairs. And now about there. It might be a little too splayed, but we'll just see. We'll just draw. Oh yeah, I forgot to mark the crosshairs. See, always mark the crosshairs. Always needs these. Sometimes you think, I don't need the center lines. No, you always need the center lines. There we go. So we'll do that to mark our. And these center lines here on the fingers, these can also give you a guide for where to put the wires. Handy that. So this is just to make sure that our fingers are relatively even. Right? That'll be fine. And then we'll just do a little curve. I'm getting the old Bob Rossi. Happy little curves. And really, it's just a matter of rounding off. So what I'm doing here, you see how I'm rounding off the base? I'm going just a little bit down from the sphere. This is going to be the pattern for our insert. We're going to use the same pattern for the arm itself. But we will cut this out separately. So this is what we would carve the foam as. So I think, yeah, it does look a bit robotic. Well, yeah, because you're basically designing bones, right? Oh, excuse me, my nose is running. Let me, before it gets ugly. Hang on. Okay, so yeah, I think, you know, I've gone down a little too far, I think, on the base here. Where the sphere is seems pretty good, actually, so let's just do that. We want cutesy and cartoony. So let's just do that as our base. That's good. Okay, so what we can do now is we're going to decide that there's where we're going to start our arm. All right, and again, we're just rough sketching this in. There's no science to this. But the length of the arm is important, and this is something that you can play with. As a general rule of thumb, your arm from the wrist to the shoulder is usually about the same length as the body, give or take. Again, it depends on the character. Often, something like Dr. Teeth, you know, that doesn't follow any rules. So it really depends on your character. But as a general rule of thumb, like a more or less human proportioned thing will have an arm length that ends at about the hip, and then the hand begins. So all we can do is just measure. So we're looking at 8 inches, 7.5. We'll go 7.5 just to be safe. So can we do that on one piece of paper? We just barely make it, but that's good. That's good. I just don't want to waste cardstock. So we're going to take the center line. We're changing the trajectory a little bit. It's literally right at the very bottom. That's kind of amazing how well that worked. But we're just going to go right down to the bottom. So if you want a cartoony, muppety, fraggly look, you generally taper a bit narrower at the shoulder. You don't have to do that. If you want just like a noodle arm, again, like Dr. Teeth, for example, this would be the same diameter the entire way down. We're gonna taper a little bit. So how wide is this? Phew, that's not a nice even number. Let's try and make it a nice. We'll try and go 1.5. That is about 1.5. So we're gonna go 1.5 at the wrist, and let's go 1. We'll taper 1/2 inch, and we'll go 1 at the very bottom. How about that? That seems not bad. So we just marked 1 inch from the center, and we'll just make our line. You see, we've got a nice taper. And there we go. Now, that's not bad. I got graphite all over me now. I'm very messy. I'm left-handed drawing and writing, so it gets messy. It might look a little bit long, but don't worry, it's not going to look that long on the puppet. So there's a couple of design choices you can make at this point. One good thing to do is at the shoulder. I don't often do this, but depending on the character, again, if you're going for a more human proportioned character, it's not a bad thing to taper at the shoulder. Now, because this is laying flat, the taper is actually going in the opposite direction. You want the shoulder to be a little higher at the top than the bottom at the armpit. We're gonna look at that after we put this together. That's something you can do after the fact, because we're not cutting a seam. We're cutting like through around the seam. So we'll look at that once we actually get the thing put together. But it's good to put it on an angle, like when it's coming. So it's not coming straight out of the body. It's actually sitting on an angle like that. That looks nice. So that's a good thing to do. So that's pretty much it. Now this is going to be the fleece pattern. So we're gonna cut this out. It's the cutting out portion of the show. It's the having some more coffee portion of the show. Oh, how we doing? We're only half hour in. That's good. We're moving. This is what I wanted. I want to get to the fabrication part. I don't think we're going to get to the fabric part, but again, that's the kind of thing that I'll shoot a video for that when I make this. If I don't do a live, I'll shoot a video and put it up in the live playlist. So you'll see everything. That's the point. But now we're going to make the hand pattern for the insert specifically. Oh, there's enough caffeine, at least for me. I get to a point where it doesn't really wake me up. I'm one of those people that doesn't really work on. It only wakes me up a little bit, and I always get to a point of like having so much I just feel sick instead of awake. So I'm careful. So another thing I'll often do is as I'm cutting it out, I'll actually make some design choices. Like I wanted this curve to be a little bit more or less intense. I wanted this to be more gentle. So I'm just kind of cutting and designing as I go. This is just how I like to work. I like to kind of feel it, you know, man. This is the exciting watching Kevin cut cardboard part of the stream. But like I said, this is going to be the skin. This is going to be the fleece pattern. And then we're going to work backwards from there. So next we're going to do the foam. This is, like I said, this is going to have wire armature inside, so these fingers will be posable. Have you ever used the wood bead and rope technique for the arms? I haven't. I've seen that, and it looks neat. The one thing I have done that we're not going to do this time, but it is a good thing to do, is the shoelace technique for the arm, where you actually run a shoelace from the wrist to up the entire arm, and then you tie it off instead of putting like a ball joint or something in. And that makes the arms removable and yet still strong. That's a real good thing to do. The Oracle and Frankie are both done like that. We're going to go a little bit simpler for this just because we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. But I haven't done the wood bead and rope technique. I know what you're talking about. I just haven't done it, so I can't really comment on it because I don't really know. But what are the advantages? I mean, I'm not sure. I guess it just gives some structure. I know one thing they do in museums when they're doing archive materials is they'll put, and a lot of the puppets they basically turn them into photo puppets. They're not puppets anymore. They're stuffed and they're solid, and they're using archival materials that doesn't degrade over time. And one of the things they'll put in the arms and legs is stuff called lock line, which is a similar thing to the wood bead and rope thing, where it's just like it's used in like gardening or something like that. It's just this like this stick that is segmented, and you can kind of pose it into exact shapes, and they'll put that in so they can pose them. That's why there's no arm rods in the puppets that you see in museums. They look wigglier to me. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I can see that. I wonder if Dr. Teeth has that. I think Dr. Teeth is probably just foam. But it's a very soft foam, right? Because there's no joint in Dr. Teeth. Dr. Teeth is just a noodle. Okay, so we're going to not waste cardstock. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the foam insert. And it's basically the same thing. We're just going to draw in this curve and round this off. So we'll just start from the bottom here and go around, trace out the pattern we have. Oh, I like doing patterns with cardstock and not like craft paper or something, because this just makes it much easier to trace. And all we're going to do is just round this off. That thumb might look a little big, but it'll be fine. Once we get the wire armature in there, we can bend it to shape. So again, this isn't precise or anything. This is just, it is what it is. And we'll cut that out. Whenever I'm cutting out the foam that I've traced from a fabric pattern, I always try and cut on the inside of the line, because the foam is going to be big, it's puffy. So I always try and cut this a little bit smaller than what the pattern is. Fiber-filled arms could easily be stuffed too much. Yes, my first puppet, they don't move well, so that'd be an interesting test. Yes, you do have to kind of get a feel for how much fiber fill to put in. We'll get to that. I don't think we'll get to that today. But I'll at least get to that on a shot video of stuffing the arms. I always do it. In fact, we can look at that because that's what this Greebly has. Where are we going? What do we do? How about this? Come here, Greebly. So, you see how the arms they look like they've got musculature? That's because I put the fiber fill in sort of bundles and chunks. I kind of roll it up and then I stuff it in, and I make sure I do it in like a bicep and a forearm chunk. And then I pinch and I roll the ends to make a joint right there, right? So it naturally wants to bend at that point, but it looks like it's got a little bit of musculature. It's pretty good. I like it. And it's easy and it's quick and it's not expensive and you're not using, foam. Thank you. It is pretty good, Greebly. if I do say so myself. It's also a really easy one. And the mouth ended up really good. Sometimes, things just go a little bit outside of her spec. But the mouth on this one ended up being nice and loose. And yeah, hello. So it's really nice to perform. I got everything's lined up really well. So I hope the client enjoys it. This is going out tomorrow. It's your last chance to visit with Kermit. There's still scraps of fur. But yeah, so that's what I do when I'm stuffing an arm with fiber fill is I'll just do it in like, discrete chunks and then make joints at the wrist and at the elbow. And sometimes at the shoulder as well. Something like this. You don't really need to worry about doing the elbow taper because it's going into fur. So it's like, the character design doesn't need a natural shoulder. It's fine like this, right? So yeah, that's how I do that. The legs, on the other hand, to do another way, the legs are foam tubes that have a wedge cut in them to form a joint. But we'll get to that. We'll do legs as well for the thing. Actually, maybe we won't do legs for the thing we're building here because this doesn't have a rounded body, and legs look weird on a not rounded body. But we'll talk about legs. We'll get to everything eventually. Yeah. I think my newest goblin has close to that on the arms, but I have only used him a little. Yeah, well, that's the other thing, right? It'll loosen up as you use it. If you overstuff, which is a real thing that can happen, there's not much you can do about that, unfortunately. Although it will loosen up a little bit with time and wear. But that's generally true of puppets in general. Your puppet, as it comes out of the shop, is generally going to be a little bit stiff. Over time, like there's a kind of curve with puppets that after they really get nice and worn. So not worn too much, but just worn enough so they're nice and loose and floppy after they've been used a little bit. It's like anything else, just like breaking in a pair of jeans kind of thing, right? It's gotta get some love. Fresh off the factory floor is always a little bit stiff. All right, here we go. Just trim this down a little bit. So there's our foam insert. So the other thing we have to do to pattern this out is to make a hand plate. The hand plate is going to be just a piece of usually plastic, is what I often use, that goes in the center that we attached the wires for the fingers to, and also glue the arm rods to. We'll talk about arm rods and removable arm rods and all that stuff in a second, but I always do permanent arm rods. And for reasons that we'll discuss when we get to the arm rod part. But that's what a hand plate is for. You don't have to do this. If you don't want or don't need posable fingers, don't worry about this step. You don't need a hand plate or armature in the fingers if you're not going to do posable. Most people want posable, I mean, for obvious reasons. So I always do this by default. I don't always do arm rods by default, though, because like the Smalls, for example, their arms are designed to just kind of be loose and flop around. So, Koya, hello, how are you doing? Do you design your characters based on a planned personality or pick personality after it's finished? I always start with a personality. I always have an idea for what, not really the personality necessarily, but the feel of the character, the vibe, what my goal is always the first time you see a puppet, you have to get an idea of who they are, what they're like, right? Maybe what they sound like, or maybe how they move. There's always got to be a real kind of thing that hits you. It's a first impression thing, right? If you get that, and that's always what I design to. We talked about this last time, that I don't sketch out my designs beforehand. I usually just start with a feeling that I want the character to have, and then I'll design to that. So that means, like, you know, if I'm doing a character and I know I want them to be dopey, I'll do, you know, half closed eyes or buck teeth or something, very cartoony standards, right? But yeah, that's usually what I do, because I'm also designing usually for the shop. So I try to not go highly specific. I try to just make sure that there's a clear personality, and that can become whatever the person wants it to be, right? This one wakes up and uses violence. Well, the crazy Harry, right? Go to a party later. Wow, that's brave. I am still frightened of socialization from the pandemic. It's not good. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So what I'm going to do is for the hand plate. How should we do this? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just trace this again. Got enough room. And then I'm going to draw in the hand plate. We don't have to trace the whole thing. I'll show you how this goes. It's real simple. But we're just doing a rough tracing of this again. We just want to see where the fingers are. Good enough. So, I generally try not to make be like sharp edges. You don't want sharp edges inside this because it's going inside foam. It's going to be sandwiched between two pieces of foam, so you don't want to ever, like, you know, through wear cut through that. So I generally just do a kind of blobby shape that is making sure we get the base of all of the fingers kind of incorporated, right? So kind of like that, just a shape. And we're going to put a dot at the base of every finger. Now this is where, like, something like this, if you start with this is handy, because then you can just like track the center of the finger, but we don't really need to get all that specific. We can just kind of eyeball. You know, there's the base of that finger. Here's the base of this finger. Here's the base of this finger. Here's the base of this finger. Now, once you get this all cut out, you're going to forget. So always put a T where the thumb is. Yes, Koya, I hope your pain does get better. I know about that. So here's a word to say here about the wire. Lots of people have different wire bending techniques. And you can look that up. There's a whole bunch of different, there's like wire jigs and stuff you can make. I've never had very much luck with that. It's weird because I used to do chainmail, so I'm familiar with the principles of bending wire. I just never really got the hang of doing detail work like this. So one thing you can do, let me see if I can get this down without knocking a whole bunch of things over. What thickness do you use for the plastic for your palm? So, I don't go too thin. I don't know how thick this is, actually. Let me see. I get these sheets of polystyrene. This is about, like, I don't know, 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. That's it. But anything will do. It's like Tupperware thickness is, you know, plastic bins from a dollar store are fantastic sources of plastic. That kind of thing. You don't upcycle where you can. It's like shampoo bottles, you know, are great. That kind of thing. It's plastic everywhere. Put it in a puppet. But one thing you can do is make this sort of arrangement. This is obviously what I made for the Greebly hand. I usually use pieces from both places. Yeah, exactly. That's a real good thing to do. This is why you keep your scrap. Right, because these are just small little discs, right? So they don't need to be much. So here's a wire bending. I guess this is a jig. I guess it's called a jig, where, you know, I just like put some bolts in the points, and then you can sort of bend the wire around this and make like an outline. I find this really tricky and awkward to do, so I don't tend to do this. I find that if I use a hand plate like this, I don't need to do this. So this is just how I do it for my comfort. Jamie, hello. That would fully be a jig. Good. It's not dancing, so it's not a jig. Because that was also what that word means. Oh dear. I made this to try it out. I don't end up using this ever. I find that doing the hand plate and then just bending the wire by hand is the way that I go. You may find this works for you. Go nuts, absolutely. These are nice to have, always. But that's just not how I work. I do this. So this is going to be a plastic disc. We're going to punch holes at the base of the fingers, and then you'll see once we get there how we measure the wire out. It's real simple. So we're just going to cut out just the disc part. And we're actually ready to fabricate. Exciting. All right, here we go. Oh, we got to punch some holes in this hand plate pattern. Trim it up. We do want a bit of an area here because we're going to glue the arm rod onto this. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's grab our leather punch. That had a real tough time going through my belt the other day. I put on like pants that need a belt for the first time in a long time. Yesterday, I guess it was, and have discovered that it's been so long and I've lost so much weight since I last wore them that I needed to punch a new hole in my belt. And it's an old belt and the leather is very tough and it was really hard to get through it with this stuff. I managed to eventually, but it's a good thing I did because otherwise I would have to like wear sweatpants or something, and I don't want to do that outside. Here on the stream, actually I'm wearing shorts, but it was a trial there. I didn't check that. I waited till the last minute. It's like, I assume my pants will fit. No. So there we go. We're just going to punch some holes. If you've got a hole punch, congratulations on your weight loss. Yeah, thank you. It's not really an option at the moment. It's just a byproduct of my diabetic diet. But I'll take it. It's nice. It's nice to be, I have lost about 100 pounds in the past 2 years. If you look at my old videos, like some of my first videos on this channel, you will see it. I looked at something old the other day and I'm like, oh, wow. You can see it in my face even. It's kind of wild. So, you know, if you gotta be diabetic, there can be an upside. And this is one of them. I'm wearing shirts that would never fit before. Okay, so there we go. We have our holes punched out in our pattern. So there we go. Now we can just start making it. Do we do foam first or do under the hand plate first? Let's do the foam first, and then we can lay out the hand plate on the foam. That's what we will do. So our fabric, that was good. We used one piece of cardstock for that whole thing. That's great. I'm pleased. I like being efficient. That's one unfortunate side effect of a lot of puppet building, is it can be pretty wasteful materials-wise, and I try to minimize that wherever possible. Okay. I have it as insulin resistance, so I understand your pain. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I'm managing. It's fine, but boy, let me tell you, for somebody who loves New Orleans food, the prospect of never having a po' boy again, that's a bit rough. It's not quite that bad, but yeah, no. It's one of those things, you gotta do what you gotta do. It's that or die. So, keep a happy thought. I gotta get some foam. What do I have? I got some foam. Here's some foam. We need 4 of these. So that might not be enough. Well, let's try it. We'll see. These are pretty small. So we're going to trace out 4 of these. Now, one thing you always want to do, again, because we want to try and reduce the number of pen marks on the outside, we always want to mirror patterns. New Orleans, one of those bucket list places for me. Yeah, I've been twice, and let me tell you, oh, I mean, my wife and I we're not partiers or drinkers or anything, but it's just the culture in New Orleans is so wonderful. The music, and it's literally the music is everywhere. It's just everywhere you go. It's wonderful. The people are just fantastic. Love it to bits. But you've heard me, if you've watched this stream, you heard me wax eloquently about New Orleans several times. So that's that way. So we're gonna flip it around and mirror it. And I wonder if we can squeeze 4 in here. We'll see. If not, I'm sure I've got enough scrap. This is why you save your scrap. So this is upholstery foam. The foam that you choose for the hand, it doesn't really matter. Because remember, this is never going to touch human skin. This is going to be inside fleece for the entire duration. So upholstery foam is perfectly fine for this kind of thing. Reticulated foam carves nicer than upholstery foam. It's easier to carve, I find, because it's more plasticky, and this stuff is very rubbery, and this stuff kind of pushes against the blade rather than having the blade cut through it. So you need a super duper sharp blade to go through this stuff, whereas you don't need it sharp for reticulated foam. So that's one consideration. It's just the reticulated foam costs 2 to 3 times more than this stuff, so also a factor. Can we do one? I don't think we can do one more. I think we're gonna do some. Nope. I mean, almost. We can almost get there. We don't really need the wrist. I don't want to do a whole other piece. Hang on, let me see if I've got another piece that's just big enough for one. Nope. Oh, so close. I don't want to cut a whole new piece of foam just for this one little hand insert. I got reticulated foam under here. We can use that. Nope. All right, fine. Just gonna cut a chunk of upholstery foam. Be back here. I'll be right back. Let me off camera for a second. The camera's probably gonna go weird. It often does that. I'm debating getting rid of the follow cam. I'm not sure how useful it really is. Can you see me back here? You can see me. Okay, good. Wireless mics are great. Here we go. Little chunk. You can see the difference. It's funny because foam photodegrades. And all foam yellows pretty badly. So you can see this stuff has been in the sun. This stuff has not. This is the same foam. It's exactly the same. This is why if you're going to dye foam, often it's a good idea to leave it out and you let it yellow naturally before you dye it, so you know the color is true once you finish dyeing it. Let's say we went this way, so now we've got to go this way. Not a pencil. Pencil won't do good when you go down foam. So for cutting these, because this is upholstery foam, I mean, obviously, always a razor blade is the best thing. You will be more accurate and get cleaner lines with a razor blade. The problem is this is upholstery foam, and we're also cutting very small curves. So it'd be a struggle. So I'm just going to cut these out with scissors. We don't need to worry too much about the edges being beveled or anything like that, because this is just being stuffed inside fleece. The fleece is the thing that's going to give it its shape. So we don't have to be too picky with accuracy in this instance. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So I got my scissors for only cutting foam. You have plenty of camera views. I don't know if it's follow view is necessary, but it randomly focuses on a puppet. Yeah. Well, see, the problem is because I have to move around so much, right? Like I have to go in here and go back here. So like, it's good in that respect. I just, who knows? I don't know if I need that much. It might be better to not have it just go weird every now and then. So I'm just giving her an old, kind of a rough cut. Again, be as accurate as you can be, but for going around these little tiny curves, it's tricky. And like I said, if this is reticulated foam, razor blade, no problem. Oh, sorry, I'm off camera. I didn't realize. Camera actually, no, this is it's just a webcam, but it's NVIDIA Broadcast has a filter that's like follow auto center. So this is actually just a portion of the full frame. But yeah, it's a high res shot that gets cropped. I can set different zoom levels and stuff. I can even show you the full frame. Actually, let's see if I can do that without messing up the stream. We'll turn off the auto follow for a second and just see. Boom. So this is the full frame. So that's it. There's our range right there. I'll bet you the image quality is much better on this, isn't it? Yeah, it does work well enough, but you know, in there's our zoom view, right? The other thing I can do is I can add a background blur. There we go. Now I look like I'm on a green screen, even though I'm not. Or we can do this and remove the background. But that's real bad. That's like very badly green screened. But this is not good. I don't like this. How do we remove it? We remove this effect. There we go. So this webcam is an Elgato face cam. This is probably one of the best. The glass, the lenses in this thing are actual like Sony lenses. They're for real camera lenses. It's still a webcam though. Like it's still the optics, the sensor inside is still a webcam. So it's okay. It's not up to my standards, you know, but the Logic camera that would pan left and right manually, yes, but it was slow, painfully slow and jerky. Yeah, there's the whole bunch of like, you know, tracker servos and stuff of limited success. I'm still thinking. I'm always that's the fun part for me of doing all the setup stuff. Is just like I like tinkering. Sounds pricey. Yep, I'm sure it is. It's a robot. So I'm not being terribly precise with the rounding of the edges here. You don't need to worry too much about that. Again, this is getting stuffed inside fleece, and the fleece is going to hold its shape. So you don't want too angular, but you don't have to worry too much about getting too precise. Just get there. Get as close as you can without worrying too much. This is the worst when you're cutting foam and you get the little bits and it's just like the static just makes them stick to everything. It just me, or is that focus off? Hang on. Sorry. Again, on camera. Well, that's about as good as we're gonna get. All right. I'm always fiddling with the cameras. It's a never-ending struggle. What I need is a real studio. Buy me 8,000 coffees. And we can get a real studio. No worries, Jamie. I hope your emergency is solved quickly and efficiently and with little pain. As little pain as possible. Some pain, because, you know, otherwise you're going to lose your edge. Kidding. Go. Let's get rid of these little scraps. This is the worst. When I'm carving like a foam tongue or something, it's just creating tons of little scraps. It's It's a nightmare. You just end up covered in stuff. It's sticking to like the desk, and it's just it's everywhere. This is fun. I'm always so worried about making the stream exciting, and then I gotta remind myself, people don't come here for exciting. Come here for like chill, hanging out, making puppets. It's fun, it's relaxing. This is ASMR, that's what it is. We're doing ASMR puppet building. Although with the noise filter on the mic, you can't actually hear the little snips from the scissors, I'll bet. I'll have to chew gum or something, I don't know. Explosions, drama, and violence, exactly. All right, there we go. One more. Yeah, fortunately, we're not going to be getting the fire today, Zep. Although we will get the fire at some point. When we're doing the facial features, we'll actually use fire. Didn't know fire could be a component in puppet building, did you? Okay, almost there. Get one of your kitties to purr, yeah. Yeah, Jimmy had a checkup at the vet yesterday. Everything looks good, but poor guy was so scared. I got lots of love when we came home, though. Such a relief every time. It looks like Jimmy is not diabetic, which is good news. There was a suggestion his blood glucose was a little high last time he had a blood test. So this was a follow-up to see, and this time it was normal. So chances are the first time it was just like stress-induced, which apparently can make the blood glucose meter a little high. So that's good news. Okay, here we go. So we've got 4 foam hands cut out, mirrored, so the pen marks can be. We're not going to hide them completely, but they'll be as hidden as possible. Fire poke was boning. I think we're part of it. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so now we're going to do the hand plates. So since this is black plastic. Now these are sheets of polystyrene that I order on Amazon, I think. Again, I think this is about a 1/4 inch thick. Not much more than that if it is. Or sorry, not a 1/4 inch, like a 1/16. Thin, it's thin, it's like Tupperware thin. But since this is black, we can't draw on it with a Sharpie, so we've got to use, these are just like paint markers. This happens to be the one that I know has ink in it, so we can put the foam scissors away and have another sip of coffee. Ah, refreshing. Okay, so hand plate. Again, these don't have to be super accurate. You want to get the holes in the right place. That's pretty much it. Now, like I said, there are other ways to do this, particularly for mounting arm rods. We'll discuss a sort of mid-range way momentarily. I do also mirror these, although you don't really need to. It's just a good habit to get into. this case, the thumb is over here. There we go. This plastic is malleable enough that I can cut it with heavy-duty shears, so that's nice. I don't have to put this on the Dremel saw or anything. And it's a little bit tough to do with these, but you can do it. You want 8.5 by 11 sheet? No, these are 12 by 12, I think. Yeah, let me see. I got a whole one right here. These are. Where's my big ruler? Yeah, 12 by 12. I should put together parts lists, actually. Now, the thing is, like, I'm in Canada, right? I know most of you are probably not. So I always, if I'm ordering from Amazon, I always order from Amazon.ca, and their stock is different than Amazon elsewhere, so might not be so useful. Shut the bud. Hello. Working on arms. We are indeed. Hello to arms, as it were. Classical reference. Don't worry about it. This is a bit of a struggle. I wish I had a big stamp that I could just put this on a machine and go ka-chunk and stamp these out. That'd be great. I was searching them up on Amazon. So yeah, you want to look for like styrene sheets or oh gosh, I forget the name of the like ABS plastic, that kind of thing. But again, you don't need that. You could just, the nice thing about these are this is thermoplastic, so you could heat this up with a heat gun and shape it. But I'm doing like a curved mouth plate. This is the stuff I use. But like, you know, old Tupperware, plastic bins from a dollar store, that kind of thing, shampoo bottles, like that works just fine for this kind of thing. And is a good way to keep plastic out of the landfill. Oops. It's all right. Everything's fine. Everything's under control. Don't worry. You do have to be careful if you're heating up ABS plastic because it does off gas. So you want to use ventilation and a respirator and everything when you're doing that. Oh, my nose is running again. I guess it's allergy season. Sorry, one sec. It's officially spring. Everything is oozing. Now, because we've cut this, this is going to have a bit of a rough edge on it. I don't really want a rough edge, so I'm just going to sand this down. Now, I use emery boards generally for this kind of thing. We built a little armless. Yep. This is jolly shape, Governor. One thing to note, if you do end up getting this like black ABS plastic, when you sand this, it will create this like black dust that you don't want to breathe in. Shut up, what are these for? Sorry, yeah. These are for hand plates. So what we're gonna do is, in the foam hands, we are going to sandwich these in, and we're going to attach the finger wires, the armatures for the fingers to these. Any further questions? I'm happy to answer. Yeah. So when you sand these down, this creates this really nasty black dust that's like charcoal dust, and it will just get all over your fingers and everything. So to be aware of that, and also like clean your hands off before you go and touch like fleece or something, because I messed up real bad once and I forgot that I had just done this, and there was some black dust on the emery board that I got on my fingers, and then I touched some yellow fleece and it got in the fleece, and it was just like, I got it out eventually, but it was a real nightmare because this stuff is like charcoal dust. And also you don't want to breathe it in. So I'm just gonna give a quick rounding off those edges. I know you can't see this, but I'm going over the garbage can because I don't want this stuff all over the carpet. And again, I'm just rounding off the edges so we don't have any sharp edges that are going to wear in and tear away at the foam. Because even though if it doesn't do it immediately, over time that could happen. It could like sort of gently saw while it's inside there. So you want to make sure everything that goes inside a puppet is nice and soft and rounded. Even if it's a rigid material, especially if it's a rigid material, you don't want any sharp edges. Yeah, believe me, you do not want to ingest this stuff. This is not human edible. All right, this emery board is also pretty much done, so I'm just going to chuck it out. And I'm going to get, this is the stuff I'm talking about. It's terrible. I'm going to clean this off. We don't have black dust all over the work surface. For some reason, I usually get stuck on the arms and I just stop. Yes, well, this is a very common thing. We were talking about this before, that like no puppet builder I'm ever been aware of enjoys doing hands. Hands are the worst. Everybody is like, nah. Some people are just fine with it, but there's no one who enjoys it that I have found, at least. If you enjoy making puppet hands, message me because I may have some work for you. Okay. It's true, some things are only edible once. This is known as the Daffy Duck philosophy of life. Now that we've done that, we are going to punch some holes. For this kind of plastic, it's soft enough that a leather punch goes through it with a bit of elbow grease. So that's what we're going to use. So you won't have to get the drill press out for this. Just going to punch those holes where we've marked them. I gotta rethink the overhead cam again. It's, the soft focus is not doing it for me. I should probably put the Elgato face cam up there because it's got infinite focal. Whereas the thing that I'm currently using is a real camera. It's a DSLR. So you have to manually focus it. I don't know. I'm always tinkering. Okay, here we go. We got our holes punched. Always make sure you clean out the punch when you're done. I'll do that later. Because otherwise it could just get clogged up and gross. So that's it. So now we're going to start building wire armatures. So the way that I do this is I'll take my hand inserts and I'll lay them out and we'll decide. And you usually want to, again, mirror everything. It doesn't really matter for this, but it's just a good practice to get into. Sounds like the perfectionist curse. Yes, exactly. And we just gonna line up those holes. I know the holes are tough to see, with the base of the fingers. And let's get our wire. So this is 18 gauge, 19 gauge, 19 gauge stainless steel wire. You can get this at any hardware store. 19 is a good gauge. You don't want to go much thicker or thinner than this. But all I do, again, this is just how I do it. You can always use a jig if you want to get it perfect. But you know, my cutting and everything is so wow, that is really out of focus. That's bothering me. And now it's bothering you. That a bit better? I think it's a bit better. Yeah, it's a little bit better. Anyway, moving on. I'll take the wire and I'll lay it and we don't want to go fully to the end. You always want to leave a little bit of room because we don't want it poking out the end. But I'll just sort of eyeball it and then I'll fold it at the at the point, so we get one that's about the right length. And then we're going to cut it at that point. We're going to go right to the end of the finger, cut it, pull it in half, cut it. So now we've got, you know, and that does seem a little bit long, but what we're going to do now, and this is kind of, you know what? Hang on, let me get the close-up cam, because this is a good little tip that I kind of worked out myself. And I don't think I've seen anybody do. What type of, so this is steel, 19 gauge steel wire, stainless steel. Here, let's go. I don't know what does this camera look like. Okay, that's pretty good. Here we go. So this is, sorry, this camera's gonna get shaky. I apologize. This is tough to line up, but there we go. 19 gauge stainless steel wire. You can use like florist wire. Florist wire tends to be a little bit thin. This is just the stuff I found works well. So what I'm going to do, once you've measured it out and you've got the length, I'm going to bend a little fish hook in the end. Right? Little fish hook. Yeah. This is a little GoPro on a tripod. And then we're going to bend the other side in a little fish hook directly opposite, so it's facing, right? So you're basically making a little bobby pin type thing. And then we're going to feed it through. This can be a little fiddly. Feed it through that way. There we go. And then come through, hook it around. And so now both ends are through. Right? And then we're going to pinch it off at the base. So what this is going to do is make sure there's no sharp edges. Right? Because we've got it nice and rounded. We've pinched this off, we've squeezed this down, and we've got a nice rounded edge. So that's not going to stick, poke out through. So then what I do is I just grab on and give her a twist. You always want to do twisted wire. It's stronger because this stuff can break. This stuff will fatigue and break if it's used too much. So this just gives it a little bit of extra strength. And so now what that does, you see, is that shortens the length enough that we're not going right to the end. So that's how I do my finger wires. Hopefully that was helpful. And so we'll keep it on this camera, I think, for now. I may go, it's really easy to get off frame because this is just so close, but we'll see. We'll try. Let's see if I can get this away far enough. I'm using soldering wire, twisting that. It doesn't need to hold. No. So the problem with soldering wire is that breaks really easily. The steel wire doesn't. It will eventually break, but the soldering wire is like you can just go and then break it off, right? And so, you know, you pose those fingers 3 or 4 times and they'll probably break off inside. You don't want that. So my advice is to not use soldering wire. Yeah, the hook is real handy. And again, you want to avoid having these pointy ends, right? So if we pinch it off here, and then what I do is I'll kind of encase the end in hot glue, right? Just put like a covering around it to make sure there's no metal burrs or anything that's sticking inside. So again, the measuring is quite simple. We just go right to the end of the finger, hold. I know this is a real tough angle. Hold at the point where you hit the hole, bend it in half, cut it at the base where that bend is. Make your fish hooks. So you bend it going inside once, and then you bend another one facing it. Make basically a paper clip. You know how a paper clip is bent. Sometimes you'll get them uneven, that's fine. As long as you can pinch them off on the end, that's all you need to worry about. So through one way, hook it through the other way and then fold it around. This close-up cam came in handy. And then we're going to pinch it off. Sorry, I know it's really weird to line up this shot. It's unintuitive. Once I practice more with it, it'll be fine. And then we're going to twist it. This is what the slightly stronger plastic here is handy for. It's good for the twisting bit. You can use it to kind of brace against. So there we go. And just make sure you round off the edges. That's all. You just don't want any pointy bits. So there we go. There's our next finger. Now, if you do go too far, if you don't measure right and you're poking out the end here, all you gotta do is sort of fold it over, and that's fine. And they both let go of them with removable arms. Well, you know, making the removable arms is a good thing regardless. That's a good thing to do. It's your puppets will get longevity, and you can do costume changes easily with removable arms. But also, yeah, I mean, you do things like that, like the removable head, removable arms, so repairs are easier. That's a good practice to be in. You didn't do wrong. Now, sometimes your base holes aren't going to line up perfectly. That's why, you know, this is wire. You can bend it to line up. You just want to make sure that the wires are in the middle of the fingers. So there we go. Keep it on this camera for now, I guess. It seems to be working, so. Even though half the stuff I'm doing is off camera. It's tough to keep it on camera. I'm either looking at what I'm doing or I'm looking at the shot, right? You'd think a puppeteer would be able to do both. I'm just an amateur puppeteer. When you add arms to the greebly, do you trim the fur at the base to get a smoother surface to surface contact? When I'm using dull joints, generally no. I'll just poke a hole. When I'm doing like facial features and stuff, that's when you want to shave it down to the netting. But for arms, I generally don't. There's no need to. I do like sort of spread the fur out and then make the hole in the center so there is kind of a space for it to go. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to trim the fur down. I just find I don't need to. This one's going to be trouble. There we go. See, this is why this is among the easier techniques, and it's still a pain. This is why nobody likes making hands. Including me. Now you see, if we did 2 fingers and a thumb, we'd be done now. All right, here we go. One more, and then we get to do it all again. Maybe we should, for the sake of the stream, where are we at? 12:30. Yeah, we only got half an hour left. Maybe for the sake of the stream, we'll go on, and we'll try and get one arm or one hand finished, or at least close to finished. I'm not sure we're gonna get there, but yeah. So that's the reason why I do it like this, is so we've got rounded ends, right? That are these aren't gonna cut through. Yep, absolutely. Less digits is a good thing, if appropriate, of course. Okay, one more, and then we'll move on. I turned on the. This is one of the few cases where a hot glue gun is a good thing. This is one of the applications that it actually does a good job with. Here we go. One more finger. I'm just gonna burn through this. Let's go back to this camera. We'll put this aside because I'm just gonna try and get this done. You've seen it 3 times now. You should be good. If you have any questions, let me know. And again, this is just a technique that I worked out. There's lots of ways to do this. All you got to do is get the twisted wire in the hand, right? There's lots of ways you could do that. See how much faster this one went. All right, we are just going to make the one and we'll move on to arm rods is the point we are at now. So we talked a bit about arm rods last time, so I would suggest going back and watching last week's VOD if you missed that. So we did talk quite a bit about arm rods. My arm rods are 3 32nd-inch copper-clad steel welding rods with a wooden dowel, which is extracted from a sponge brush because it's handy, and then glued in place. So these are my standard arm rods. There's all kinds of designs for arm rods, so you can get much fancier than this, and you can have ones that have like grips and stuff on the handles. So I just do real simple. And this at the moment, I drill down into the dowel and then push this in with some hot glue, good quality hot glue. There is such a thing. A brand name hot glue. I generally use Gorilla brand. This is not an endorsement, but that just happens to be. Don't get like, if you're going to use hot glue for anything, try and get a good brand name. Don't get like generic whatever hot glue, because there is actually a difference. But that's all that, I keep it real simple. Now what we're going to do is get a little less simple, and we're going to cover this with heat shrink tubing. And what the heat shrink tubing is going to do is it's going to make it look nice and feel very nice, because it's rubberized basically, and it's very, very clean and smooth. But it's also going to add like a second layer of glue over the whole thing, and so it's going to be really strong. So right now this connection is pretty strong, but it's not as strong as it could be, and arm rods undergo a lot of stresses, so you'll want to make them good and strong. That's one of the things that the heat shrink tubing does. So let me get that set up. Oh, we don't need this anymore. And I'll go ahead and make the other arm, or make the other hand, before we move on to next stream. So I get this stuff. I usually order on Amazon. This is. So you got to get rolls. This is the part where it can be a little hard to find, because usually you can find them in very short lengths, because they're using electronics for joining wires together. These are rolls though. Let's see if I can 100 feet. It doesn't have the diameter. I don't remember size. HBY strange symbol 3.0/1.5, whatever that means. Thin. You want it just thin enough to go over the rod. And then another gauge that's just thick enough to go over the handle. Whatever your arm rods happen to be. So let's get this cut, first of all. Here's the end. Yeah. So first, you do the rod part, and then we do the handle afterwards. So what you need to do this, you need a heat gun. A hairdryer will not work. It doesn't get hot enough. You can paint arm rods. That's perfectly fine. I have yet to find a paint that doesn't eventually crack and flake. But if you know of one, like an automotive paint, I guess probably would do well. I just like this. This looks and feels really good. This feels very professional. Once you've held an arm rod that has rubberized heat shrink tubing on it, you don't want to go back. This is the Cadillac of arm rods. So I try and always do this. So there we go. I'm just going to get this big roll out of the way. We'll get down the heat gun. I am going to turn the fan on as well, because this stuff, it can off gas a little bit. Not bad, but I just want to make sure we've got the ventilation going. And here's our heat gun. It's a gun that shoots heat, so be careful. It is dangerous. This nozzle gets very, very hot. Be careful. Do not touch this. Top. There we go. Plugging it in, making sure it's off while I stand over it. Okay, so depending on your heat gun, you'll have different models. Is a fire ray gun? Yes, exactly. Are the holes on the handles off center? So a lot of people do that, and it's a really good thing to do because it provides a little shelf for the performer to put their thumb. I don't tend to do that, just because the dowels that I use are handles from sponge brushes, so the hole's already in the middle. I find that it of limited desirability. If I have a client who's got a custom commission and they want the holes off center, I'll absolutely will do that, but by default I don't. I just put them in the center, because there's enough of a shelf here that your thumb can ride on it. You know where this is. This is fine. I puppeteer with these all the time. If a client wants something specific, I absolutely will do that, but by default I just make it real simple in the center. So this is, I don't know how the mic filter is going to pick this up. We're going to leave this on, leave the mic on, and we'll just do this. Looks like you can see it a bit. All right, here we go. As the name implies, heat shrinks when it's hot. Okay, good. It's pretty noisy in here, I gotta say. And when you're standing right next to it, it can get pretty noisy. You don't want to go too close. You just want to kind of roast marshmallows, you know? All right, there's one done. So one thing to remember is this rod is now quite hot. You'll notice I'm holding it only by the wooden handle, because wood does not conduct heat. Whereas a copper-clad steel wire very much conducts heat. That's another reason why this heat shrink tubing works really well, because it coats it very evenly because the whole thing is heated up. Yeah, don't hover over one spot too long. You'll melt a hole in it. So keep it moving. It's literally just like you're roasting a marshmallow. And if you've never roasted a marshmallow, I suggest you try it. So I'm going to set this aside, making sure it's not touching anything that can melt. And we'll do the other one. So you can see a little bit got torn there. We'll deal with that in a second. I'll show you how. It's literally just colored in with a marker. All right, so in this one, I think you can see that. Yeah, little tiny. There's a little tiny tear at the top, and that just gets bigger as it shrinks. All I do is, if that happens, it's a real shame to scrap the whole thing. So I just color that in with some marker. It's fine. Like this part is just for visuals, so it's fine as long as it doesn't gleam like that. That's all you got to worry about. So now that we've got that done, we're going to take our bigger gauge and we're going to do around the handles. Now I think I could only get 2-inch. Ideally for this diameter of handle, 1-inch would have been more preferable. But this will still work. So what I do is I go up and I overlap, if you can see that, I overlap where the actual join is, and that way we'll get a nice second layer of glue that will really make this nice and solid. Oops, don't knock it on the floor. Yeah, just trim it off at the bottom. There we go. Good, good, good. How are we doing for time? 15 minutes left. We might just get there. You know what we're not going to get to is actually gluing the whole thing together, unfortunately. But I will shoot video for that. Does it look like a mesh? The heat shrink, are you talking about? If you're talking about the heat shrink, no, it's not. It's a solid, it's just solid plastic. It looks like a deflated bicycle tire. There we go. Yeah, it's a rubber tube. It's literally a rubber tube. There probably is mesh for other applications. This stuff is usually used for electronics. This is to like fuse wires together that have bare ends. So you usually, I don't know if I have any I can get to. Oh yeah, here we go. You usually get them in boxes like this that are just short lengths. This obviously isn't very good. Here we go. This isn't very good for our applications. You don't want to do this in segments because it's a heat shrink, so it will shrink in all directions, including the ones that you put it on. So you don't really want to overlap this too much. You don't want to put it on in chunks. You want a nice solid piece. But this is usually how they cut, in little chunks like that. Okay, here we go. Handle time. Gun is on. Yes, it does. It does stay warm for a bit. You do want to let it cool. There we go. So yes, it does stay warm. That's why I'm putting it over off to the side here, letting that cool down. Same thing for this nozzle. This nozzle, you notice how I'm not getting too close to it. This nozzle is still burning hot. This will brand you if you touch it. Be very, very careful. I'm going to put this back. The way I have this mounted on my little rack here is the nozzle is always far away from everything else. So be aware. It's very, very dangerous. And I have touched it by accident before, and it was not fun. Make sure you keep the power cord away from it. You don't want to melt through that. But there we go. No, OBS, I do not want to shut down. I hit my mouse accidentally. Thank you for the warning, OBS. All right, there we go. So this is still a bit warm, but it's not too bad. You can touch it. So there we go. There's our arm rods. They feel great. I love using the heat shrink. You can't always get it in the big coils like this. It sometimes could be tricky to get. So I usually, when I see it available, I usually buy a coil. So I have some kind of in reserve. Anyway, I'm going to deal with that little tear. As I'm just going to take a Sharpie. You can paint this as well. In fact, I probably will paint this because it's a little tricky to get the Sharpie down in there. Yeah, the Sharpie's not doing such a good job. I'll paint that later. You can already see it's a little bit more masked. Congratulations, you've received 100 messages today with Restream chat. Well, chat's been chatty, what do you know? Thank you. Okay, we're almost done. Yeah. We're almost at time. We're actually not almost done. So the other thing I do, depending on how I've done the hand inserts, what I usually do, let's take the one that doesn't have the tear in it. We'll take the good one. And I'll just bend a little hook in the end. And I won't go all the way and make a little flag. Often you will. You'll bend this a third time and then make this just a little loop on the end. And then you could actually do away with the hand plate. You can just put the wire on the loop. I like doing it this way, just it's a little more controlled. But that's also perfectly fine if you want to do it that way. And then all we're going to do is we're going to lay this exactly where we want it, making sure that the wrist is kind of lined up. And we're just going to dump a bunch of hot glue on it. And see if the hot glue gun is ready enough. Oh boy. Cables, wires are dangled. Here we go. There. So literally just glop a bunch of hot glue. And get rid of the spider webs. Don't get too much. You don't want to go nuts with the gloppy glue. And just kind of spread it around a little bit. I know it's a little tricky to see, but and that's it. And just let it set. Now, hot glue is not structural. This is the thing. Hot glue will break. It will crack. You don't want to rely on the hot glue, but for this, we're not really relying on the hot glue. After this, and what I'll do in a video that I shoot probably later today, I guess, is we're going to contact cement this whole thing together. We're going to sandwich this between two layers of foam. So there's going to be contact cement all over this. That's what's going to hold your structure. And then the whole thing is going to get covered in fleece. So that's it. This is just to hold it in place, really. This isn't structural. Be aware of that. You never want to rely on hot glue for anything. It will always fail. I know I'm trash talking hot glue again, but it has its uses. This is one of them, but you got to know its strengths and weaknesses. And that's really it. That's really all we kind of have time for, because the next thing is gluing all this together. Now, I have done that on stream before, so if you want to see it now, hot melt. Exactly. Thank you, Heath. Hot melt is the actual name that professionals use for hot glue. It's not glue. It's literally melted plastic. That's all it is. And the thing, it's good for joining together things that are porous, but for something that's not porous, it's useless. Like, it will just lift off. So it's not glue. It is hot melt. So there is another kind, there's called high temperature hot melt that is considerably more useful. It's also very dangerous to work with. It's like napalm. So again, use your hot glue. If you're going to use it, get a good hot glue. If you can't get contact cement, are there any substitutes? Unfortunately, no. It is one of the things that you just can't, there is no substitution for an industrial grade contact cement. I wish there was. Because believe me, it's not fun to use. But there is nothing. I wish there was. There's a bunch of different brands. So like, you know, the one that you hear most about is Barge. There we go, a little ad for Barge. This is used by shoemakers, leather workers a lot. It's very, very strong, very good. There's also Masters. There's also, I'm forgetting the one that BJ Geyer advocates. Do something. Sorry. As long as it's an industrial grade, there's other contact cements that are like hobbyist. They're not going to do as good a job, but unfortunately there is no solution to that. Weldwood, yes, thank you. Weldwood is also another good one. Do-all, that's the kind that BJ Geyer uses is do-all. And the nice thing about do-all is it's transparent. This stuff isn't. So that's, you know, I wish there was a better answer, but there isn't. That's the one thing. And if you go back and watch, in the archives, there is designing or building a puppet with accessible materials. I talk a lot about glue and why you want contact cement. Unfortunately, there's no way around it. You can still build puppets with just hot melt, but you will be limited in what you can do. Weldwood, yeah, Weldwood is a contact cement, is an industrial contact cement because it's play. You're welding wood, get it? You can't weld wood. It's funny. So there we go. What I will do then, we'll go back to this because we've got just a few minutes left. So we got pretty far. That's not bad. We designed this from scratch. We built the insert. We did pretty good. The next thing is to glue all this together and then to make the fleece covering. That is a whole thing. Maybe I won't shoot a video for that. Maybe we'll just do that on next stream because there's a whole thing there. Because I do also want to do an iteration of the design of the body. So yes, Heath, exactly. Yeah, you can build a puppet with just hot glue. And in fact, when you get some of the starter patterns from Project Puppet, they talk about just using hot glue for foam and everything. It's like, yeah, you can do it. And my first puppets were all made with hot glue. But it's not the choice. You really, unfortunately, just need to use the real stuff, the contact cement. Some people sew foam together as well. That is intriguing, but I can't imagine it would last very long. Surely it just tears through the foam. I mean, I guess if you're covering in fleece. A lot has been learned in a short amount today. Good, I'm glad. That's what we want, right? We want to advance people's knowledge. Even though we're doing real beginner stuff here, that's kind of the point. You can't, it's like sports, right? You cannot cover the fundamentals enough. You cannot practice the fundamentals enough. It's always good to go back and review. So that's kind of where we're at. So I think I will leave this. I'll build the other hand insert. And then specifically for this part, What kind of so yeah, no, super glue probably not, because you don't want anything that's going to set too quickly. I have built pans with this kind of insert with hot glue. You can do that because this is going inside the fleece covering, and it's just like it's going into a glove basically, right? Yeah, you can use hot glue for that. It'll be fine. It won't be great, but you can do it. What you have to do if you're going to use hot glue for this is when you put the hot glue on and you glue it all together, you want to put a little bit of weight on it, and sort of let this compress a bit. And what will happen is the hot glue will melt the inner surface of the foam and actually fuse it together really well. So yes, you can use hot glue for this and it'll be fine. It's not recommended, but you can do it. And again, just be careful. This is the thing I keep saying, but like hot glue is, for me at least, has been far more dangerous than barge ever has been. Barge, all you got to do is make sure you're in a well-ventilated space, wear a respirator and gloves. Hot glue is hot liquid that is thick and viscous and will stick to you. I've injured myself with hot glue far more than I've ever had a problem with barge. So, it's worth, you got to respect the contact cement, but don't be scared of it. Use it if you can. If you have a ventilated space, that's the other thing. Not everybody has a ventilated space, right? So if you don't, then yeah, you got to make do with something like hot glue. But they're in the tasty barge. Yeah, super glue in general has very limited uses. Super glue you use a lot if you're making mechs. There's a little technique with super glue and baking soda that we'll talk about at some point later, to make a really strong polymer. But it's generally, it sets too quickly. It's very crumbly and brittle when it's dry, so it doesn't actually hold that well. It's as surprising as it seems, and it has a lot of nasty residue, and it also smells terrible. Like I would advise every bit as much use ventilation when you're using super glue as you would for contact cement. Because it's literally, cyanoacrylide is like, it's cyanide. That's literally what super glue is. You don't want to be breathing that in. So yeah, there we go. Important. We're going to end on safety tips. That's the fun part of every lecture, is the safety tips. Yeah, so that's where we are. I need my lunch. So we're almost at 1 o'clock here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish putting this together. I'm just literally just gluing all this together. I have done that on stream before, so you can go back and watch some of the old archives and you can see exactly how I do that. And then for next stream, we will start with making the fleece covering from this pattern that we just built. So that's a good place to go. Thank you so much, everyone. As always, so pleased when we get people and, get the notifications for having chat, be very active. I hungry, I go eat. So have a great day, have a great weekend. The next stream, let me see, in theory, we may go to a weekly cadence. I'm still thinking about that, but the next stream should be on the 8th. So exactly 2 weeks from today, 11 a.m. Eastern, as always. Right here, same bad time, same bad channel. Have a great weekend. I'm going to head out and eat food. Enjoy!